He's not trapped in here with them. They're trapped in here with him.
I am not trapped in a facility full of robots. You are all trapped in here with me.
You know, guys, last year when I made my Rake review, I had no idea what was next for my Halloween special. I mean, that was it. That was all of the creepypasta movies I knew of outside of a few fan-made ones on YouTube. Those might get their time in the sun, but one step at a time. Thankfully, something else came along that was a bit more high profile, and while it's not exactly a creepypasta movie, I think it still fits the spirit. Willy's Wonderland is fucking stupid. It's very clearly meant to be aping off the success of Five Nights at Freddy's and Blumhouse Productions' inability to get a movie of it out in a timely fashion. So our friends at Screen Media Productions pulled a good old-fashioned, fine, I'll do it myself. Now, if you're a long-time viewer of the channel, first of all, I'm so fucking sorry, and second of all, you may recognize the name Screen Media Productions from our first venture into film, Slender. How far we've come, huh? And how far they've come. From what can barely be called a movie shot with camcorders and vertically held smartphones based on an IP they clearly did not have the rights to use, to this movie with actually surprisingly good production values, and oh yeah, one more thing. Yeah, the madman himself, Nicolas Cage, is the star of the show here, because he has to pay off his debt after buying a pyramid tomb in Louisiana, 2 king cobras, and an illegally acquired Tarbosaurus skull, among many more things, somehow. I like to imagine that his only criteria for being in a movie like this is that he doesn't have to talk for it. Seriously, he's completely silent the entire movie. The most you get out of him is a grunt or two. Most of the time with Nicolas Cage, either an actually good performance or else hilarious overacting is the big draw. But can he pull through without having a single spoken line of dialogue? Well, he finds his own ways of being charming. So let's jump into this train wreck. I know you're just as anxious as I am. So let's take a look at Willy's Wonderland. We start with a cold open. And after always watching, there's always that concern that the cold open has nothing to do with anything, but no, this one does matter. Well, kind of, I guess. We'll get there. Once the animatronics make the kill, we see him. Our boy, the man of the hour, Nick Cage. Well, the credits name him as the janitor, but I like to imagine this is just how Nick Cage acts in his normal day-to-day life, so we'll stick with Nick Cage. There's actually a tiny bit of subtle storytelling here. Like a smidge. A little speck. There's a shot of some dog tags hanging on his rearview mirror, which implies that he's had some military training and experience. Nothing is ever said verbally, because he never speaks, but it makes sense considering 3 of his main skills in the movie. Fighting, cleaning, and doing exactly what you're told without question even at the risk of your own life are pretty important in the military. His final skill is gained through a truly amazing character arc that lasts throughout the film. So yeah, good job movie. This is actually better storytelling than in a lot of movies I've seen recently. And without any spoken dialogue. Then oops, Spike Strip. I feel considering Cage's feats later in the movie, he could have dodged this. Luckily, after a can or two of punch pop, a friendly repairman comes along to tow him to the nearest town. In said town, a teenage girl is preparing to burn Willy's Wonderland to the ground. In broad-ass daylight. I respect the enthusiasm, but come on, when it comes to arson, subtlety is key. So yeah, unsurprisingly, she gets popped. As this happens, Homeboy drives up with Cage in tow, and he and teenage girl exchange some odd looks before heading off. The police officer here is basically her adopted mother, which makes this next part either more or less confusing depending on your personal experience with the adoption system. So cop lady handcuffs teenage girl to the fucking radiator and tells her to just chill out while she's at work. Okay, first of all, lady, it's way more convenient for you if you just take her to jail or the station, because you're gonna be there anyway, and you can keep an eye on her that way. You don't need to give her a bucket to shit in, and she has absolutely no chance to escape. But second of all, this is a crime in its own right, and also a massive fire hazard, and finally, you are just a terrible person. And she definitely is a terrible person. We'll get to that. Anyway, Tiny brings Nick Cage to his shop to fix his car and tells him what the damage will be. But uh-oh, he only takes cash. The ATM is busted, and the town is so small it doesn't even have internet. Nick's only option is to work off his new debt, and luckily, Slick here knows just the place. and brings him to Tex, owner of Willy's Wonderland. Tex gives him a simple offer. Spend just one night cleaning Willy's, and the payment to fix the car is on him. I like to think this is just a metaphor for Nick Cage taking movies like this to pay off his own debt. Nick Cage obviously knows something's up before anything even goes down. Look at him giving the evil eye to this weasel. It's either that or he just really hates weasels. Tex takes his leave and makes sure to remind Nick to take breaks. Can't afford any more lawsuits, I guess. And with that, Nick's shift has officially begun. Cut back to teenage girl and all her buddies come to try and save her in her time of need. You've got dorky simp, jock, slut, cool black dude, and other. They try to figure out how to break her out when Slut picks the lock for her. And now the kids can get back to their arson. Teenage girl is all like, guys, this is serious, we're doing this for justice or whatever. And dorky simp is like, yeah guys, this is serious. And everyone else is like, dude, whatever, let's just go commit arson already. And now we cut back to Nick. While he's cleaning, which he does a lot, I'll talk about the set design. It's actually really good. It seems like it was shot on location in an actual entertainment facility, which makes sense. But the actual work on the animatronic designs and the theming to make it look like its own thing is pretty impressive. And they had to not only have this set dilapidated like this, but also in a functional state for some flashback scenes, as well as once it's actually fully cleaned. It would have been so easy for them to cheap out on this, but they— oh shit, he's going into the kitchen. Alright, get ready, because I don't know if you're ready to see Nick Cage sensually molest a pinball machine. Yeah, pull it harder, push those buttons. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. Okay, break time's over, back to work. As he's cleaning, Willy, wills his comrade Ozzy Ostrich to take the first strike. The two have a short back and forth with no serious damage done, but then Ozzy draws first blood. Nick wails on this motherfucker and closes out by ripping his robotic spine out of his throat. I can see Nick Cage knows how to fight an ostrich.
Aim for the neck! Consider this to be the ostrich's weakest body part, despite their considerable size.
It's in this moment that I'd like to go on another tangent. Let's talk about Doom. Hollywood has been trying to make a Doom movie that actually works for ages now. They tried it way back when with The Rock, and that was a complete disaster. They tried it again recently by having some scrawny chick be the movie's Doom guy, having a super shotgun get shot twice before the character who uses it dies, and killed a couple of imps, who are the only demon in the fucking movie, by the way, with the fucking BFG, which looks awful. Basically, it was also a disaster. The problem with the Doom movies so far is that they're trying to have a story and like a main character who says stuff. I've wondered for a while if a Doom movie is even possible, or if you just wind up with something like Hardcore Henry. But with this movie, I can see that it's totally possible. You can have the silent protagonist who is too angry to die fighting off horrible monsters and beating the shit out of them, and as long as he has a certain sense of charisma to the point where he's endearing without needing to say a word, you don't need him to say anything. Have a backstory, a motivation, anything. You don't need to make your protagonist some boring goody-goody or generic tough guy character. You save that for the supporting cast who act as the straight man to the blood-fueled psychopath pushing your story forward. I'm a big fan of media where the protagonist is just too angry to die. Doom, Berserk, The Loved Ones, My Life. I'm just saying, Hollywood, if you want to give this Doom movie thing a third shot, follow this movie's example. Anyway, clean shirt, back to work. Now we cut to Cop Lady, who is joined by Cop Dude. And it seems he's pretty new to this whole thing, so Cop Lady can give him a whole bunch of exposition. Apparently he has a wife and kid on the way, even though he looks younger than me, and I haven't aged since I was 19. Back to Nick Cage, his job description does include taking out the trash, and that includes the carcass of the bird he just murdered, but he finds he's locked inside. Oh well, break time, back to pinball. Once the pinball machine is perfectly cleaned, it's back to work. This time in the bathroom. And I love this montage sequence. It's one thing to have him scrub for a shot or two, but no, he just actually cleans the graffiti and stains off of the bathroom, and that's his acting gig. This is real method acting here, people. Don't just act out the cleaning. Really clean that motherfucker. I like to imagine that the set was in the dirty state originally, but then for the flashbacks they just had Nick Cage clean it, film that, and they call it a story. And then after all of that, he comes back into the bathroom after turning off the animatronics who mysteriously turned on by themselves, and there's more graffiti in there. Come on, let the man rest, he's working hard enough as it is. It's none other than Gorilla Gus, who gives Nick a gorilla greetings, and the fight ensues.
Gorilla greetings.
It seems Nick Cage is going down, but he turns the tide with the plunger, finishing him off by going all American History X on his ass. After patching himself up, Gorilla Gus goes in the gorilla garbage, right next to any respect I had for Koko's handlers after seeing that one video, you know the one. Anyways, break time, and it seems that now that the pinball machine is up and running, Nick's found the one thing he sucks at, and it's time to fix that. Those teenagers finally arrive and get ready to get their arson on. But teenage girl's like, no, we have to get Nick Cage out of there first. They get his attention, but he just does not care. Nick Cage is loyal to a fault. The first instruction he hears is what he sticks with. If he gets told that he needs to clean this place to get his car back, he's gonna do it whether it means having to fight haunted animatronics or not. Teenage girl doesn't take the hint that Nick Cage can take anything the universe throws at him, and is like, no guys, we can't just let him die. And Dorky Simp's like, yeah guys, we can't just let him die. And everyone else is like, whatever dude. So teenage girl crawls through the biggest air vents in the fucking universe to get to Nick Cage, but is intercepted by Artie the alligator. The room she ends up in is home to Siren Sarah, and I gotta say, I like the movements they gave the contortionist character actress. It's actually kinda creepy, so good shit. The other kids hear teenage girl scream, and Slut and Dorky Simp are like, come on guys, we have to save her. And Cool Black Dude is like, dude, fuck this shit. Until Slut climbs up the roof in such a way that I think the director said to her on multiple takes, yeah, is there any way you can climb that ladder in a more sexual manner? Those losers aren't going to accomplish much, but luckily teenage girl runs into Nick Cage. But the room they're in is clean, so okay, back to work. Back to the teenagers, Cool Black Dude spits some hard facts at Dorky Simp, who can't accept the fact that his dream girl did something really stupid, and continues to be the only sensible character in the movie. Dorky Simp unleashes all of his dorky rage and tackles them through the roof, which collapses under them all. They meet up with teenage girl and Nick Cage, and discover that Nick is a fucking lunatic who's actually killing the monsters. Slut and Cool Black Dude go off to the super happy fun room to do some PG-13 boinking, and teenage girl gives off a fuckload of exposition while everyone else stands there because they're not actually characters. So basically, Willy's Wonderland was owned by this guy who was a horrible serial killer and used the place as a front to commit some really awful murders. And all the other characters were other like-minded serial killers he rounded up. Eventually the jig was up, but all the serial killers banded together in a satanic suicide pact to transfer their souls into the animatronics, so that when the facility reopened, they could go back to their killings even after death, only for the place to close down once again afterwards. Now, do you notice how I was able to say that in a couple of sentences instead of the wall of text you'd need to understand the Five Nights at Freddy's lore? I think I know why Blumhouse has been struggling to make that movie. And much like me with the Five Nights lore, Nick Cage doesn't care at all. Not even a little bit. The teenagers get distracted by Willy's sick freestyle rap, and Jock gets stabbed in the gut by Nighty Night. No, he was my favorite character. Everyone else splits up to look for clues. Or just to not die. Nick Cage, meanwhile, is busy on his break. I don't know why anyone would ever leave his side. Seems pretty stupid. He's the first one I'd run to. As Cool Black Dude and Slut are getting on in their PG-13 sex scene, Artie the alligator is just kind of watching them. You know, he's supposed to be an alligator, but I think he's really a crocodile. Everyone's basically having their own encounters. Teenage girl is fighting Nighty Night. Other has to deal with Tito Turtle and Siren Sarah. He dies, who cares? And Nick Cage is trying to best the pinball machine. Dorky Simp, meanwhile, calls the cops to tell them what's what, so now they're on the way. Once Nick's break is over, he breaks Nighty Night's arm, bashes his skull against the wall, and decapitates him with his own sword for good measure. Trust me when I say, he doesn't need the sword. Anyway, Crocodile gets tired of being on the sidelines and eats Cool Black Dude. Slut, no, you got blood all over your titties. Also, you died, too. But hey, at least the black guy wasn't the first one to die. Cage busts through the door, and I have to say, I love teenage girl's reaction here as he fucking suplexes Crocodile. Yeah, that nickname isn't leaving him anytime soon. And he dies anyway, so you die with that name. Also, I'd like to point out that alligators have a bite force of around 3,000 pounds per square inch, and he just ripped its jaws open as he was trying to close them shut. Nick Cage could bench a fucking car if he wanted to. Dorky Simp, meanwhile, is getting chatty with Cammy Chameleon, who says that the other animatronics make fun of her for her colorful skin. Wow, being child serial killers is bad enough, but racists? Speaking of racism, back to the cops. It's time for yet another exposition dump, this time from Cop Lady. So basically, after the restaurant closed down for the second time, the townspeople started getting killed off by the animatronics until those in charge came together to offer sacrifices to them. Kinda like the Aztecs with all those gods whose names I can't pronounce. During one of their routine sacrifices, Cop Lady ends up finding teenage girl still alive in the aftermath, but this time a small child girl, and so adopts her. Dorky Simp is really trusting this mechanical murder lizard, and as teenage girl comes into the arcade, he gets his neck snapped. Like, dude, seriously, what were you expecting? Nick Cage comes in, and he's ready to put chameleons on the endangered species list, but oops, break time.
Be sure to take breaks. Always good to pace yourself.
Here, you deal with it. Like I said, loyal to a fault. Teenage girl holds out for about a round's worth of pinball and a can of Punch Pop before Cage comes back in to clean house. All he needs to do to Tito and Sarah is punch them once in the face and they drop like rocks. But just as they're finally about to leave, it's Dingus and Dungus to set up the sacrifice proper. He's handcuffed. He's trapped. He has no backup. And now two are closing in on him at once. But they didn't account for one thing. He's Nick fucking Cage. Let's rock. Teenage girl chews out Cop Dude, who is now acting. She's about to win him over, but somehow neither of them notice a giant mechanical tortuga on their car, and Cop Dude gets eviscerated. So much for that wife and kid, huh? I'd like to point out that this is a trained cop with a shotgun and a sidearm, and this scene is cut intermittently with Nick Cage beating two of them at once, literally with his hands tied behind his back. And he rips off the handcuffs effortlessly, so he was beating their asses with an intentional handicap just because he fucking felt like it. What a baller. Speaking of that shotgun, Tito apparently took the shells, which shouldn't have mattered because a shell would still be chambered if Genius over here didn't eject it to look cool. Fucking movie shotguns, man. And then even after she bludgeons him with the gun right in his Tortuga testiculos, she doesn't even grab the shells or the car keys to drive back. Well, Nick's still got a job to do, and he gets the place as clean as he can, all things considered. And by all things, I mean blood, oil, and dead bodies. One last break. It's time for the completion of his character arc. He started off, just a few hours ago, sucking at pinball. But now, in the span of one 15 to 30 minute break, he can max out the scoreboard while dancing, spinning, and clapping to music that only he can hear. He has achieved godhood, and nothing can stop him now. Now that he knows nothing can kill him, he heads outside to take out some trash and gives the cop lady who tried to murder him a friendly wave. She points the shotgun at him and leads him inside, and in trying to sacrifice him to Willy, gets bisected in the process. But let's be real, she totally deserved this. Listen to this shit.
We had a good thing, but you just fucked it all up.
No, you did not have a good thing going on here. This was objectively a very bad thing that no one was happy with. You have a fucking gun and there's one left. You're just being stupid at this point. Willy gets a cheap shot on Nick, and with the same swipes that just tore a woman in half, gets a few scratches on him. Hey lady, I think Nick could have taken that shot. But it's clear that this time, he needs to get serious. Willy has done something no other animatronic has, and that's put up an actual fight. You know, Batman is a character that's famous for being able to do anything given enough prep time. So let's see how much prep time Nick Cage needs. Enough to put some cans in a bag and tie some sticks together. That's all he's gonna need. In fact, this is arguably going overboard. He utterly dominates Willy, as he wonders why his soul had to inhabit such a cumbersome animatronic, and Nick Cage seals the deal with a decapitation. The deed is done. Honestly, it feels like kind of an anticlimax. The movie sort of blew its load with the Ozzy the Ostrich execution at the beginning. I was expecting a lot more from Willy, what can I say? It's finally morning, and as Sparky and Tex come to see the damage, they find the padlock broken off, and the place is spotless. Nick Cage is a free man as Freebird plays. No words need to be exchanged. He's won his car back, and he finally leaves Willy's Wonderland. Teenage girl finally arrives on the scene, too late to actually do anything, but she actually survived this place twice, and as such has earned Nick's respect, and he brings her along with him to wherever they may go next. It's kinda confusing, honestly. I don't get why these two have a connection. It's pretty weird. Like, they stared at each other a couple of times, but that's about it. In fact, Teenage Girl was pretty much just an excuse to be an exposition dump and bring along her friends so that some people could get slaughtered, because otherwise this would just be an hour and a half of Nick Cage cleaning and beating the shit out of furries. Not that there's no entertainment value in that. And see, look how happy these two are that all of this shit is finally over. Cop Lady was just a psycho who liked killing people. I guess she wouldn't be the first cop like that. Bungus and Tex are looking forward to the future, but Siren Sarah survived getting her head crushed between Nick's thighs and decides to go out with a bang, blowing their car up. And the movie ends as Nick Cage and his new compadre drive off, and she's really gonna have to get used to the taste of Punch Pop because that is all he drinks. On the way out, they take out Tito Turtle, ending the reign of terror once and for all. And that is it. That's Willy's Wonderland. This movie is a mixed bag, in a lot of good ways and bad ways. It's kind of like Trail mixed with rocks thrown in there. If you're judging it as a horror movie, it's awful. It's not even remotely scary. But as a comedy, it's definitely better, but it's pretty slow and can be boring in a lot of places. There's some great moments there, but there's also some pretty clear bloat, and that even comes down to the characters. Some of them aren't even one-dimensional. They're just there to pad time and get killed. But on the other hand, despite being an obvious budget project, the production values are pretty solid. Okay, the CGI oil doesn't look very good, but in general, the vibe of Willy's Wonderland as a location is fantastic. It's genuinely great set design that has a lot of care and attention put into it. Not to mention, they got Nick Cage and the rights to Freebird. That's impressive. That second one probably even more so. Even the actress for Teenage Girl has this face at the end of the movie like, oh my god, I'm in a car with Nick Cage. Stay cool. Stay cool. Now, as a Five Nights at Freddy's ripoff movie, I think this may be a rare case where the shitty ripoff is going to be better than the big budget real one. Because here's the thing. Blumhouse is going to try and make Five Nights scary. I'm sorry, but it's not gonna work. They're gonna have a voiced protagonist with a real character arc and probably an actual supporting cast so they have names to put on a poster. Willy's leans into the goofiness hard and has one actor famous for scenery chewing that they didn't let speak, whose sole character arc is getting good at pinball. That being said, the story isn't horrible. I mean, yeah, it's goofy as shit, but it's not written in a contradictory way. Outside of Cop Lady being a righteous bitch for no good reason, when it's clear in the flashback she's not happy with this deal, it doesn't really have plot holes or anything like that. It's dumb as shit, and it knows that. Nothing wrong with that. Like, I'll be real with you, the writing in this movie, by the default of not having any major plot holes, is already better than Sony Man. I'm sure even if you factored in the scenes that were cut to keep the PG-13 rating on Sony Man, it would still be better because of that fucking ending. And in terms of entertainment value and quality, yeah, this is the best Halloween movie on the channel so far. Move over the raking, Daddy's got a new favorite. If you're in the mood for something really fucking stupid this Halloween, give this a shot. It might work out for you. But, you know, it might not. You might hate it. There's a good chance of that too. It really is up to your taste in trashy horror movies. And Blumhouse, Scott Cawthorne, good luck topping this.